Dreaming of an unconventional life? You listened to the podcast, you devoured the YouTube videos, but have you actually taken action yet? It's easy to get lost in research and inspiration. We all have the ability to piece together our ideal life, but getting started is often the hardest part, especially when it feels complicated and overwhelming. My mission around here is not just to provide the education and inspiration you need, but also to guide you step by step to take real tangible action. If you're ready to transform your vision into a practical action and a money plan for your unconventional life, let's connect. It's time to visit the Tiny House Advisor to book your call. Hello and welcome to Less House, More Moola podcast. This is episode 115. Laura, your host here. I just got back from the East Coast, had a great visit there, attending to family and to clients, and oh my gosh, my flights. So challenging. But that travel time gave me a lot of opportunity for self-reflection on all the ways that I am learning to let go. And so I thought that we would think today about how affordable housing creates a space for letting go. So imagine a life where your home doesn't feel like tightly managed chaos, but instead a safe place for learning to let go. I think lower housing costs really aren't just about saving money, but they create mental and emotional space for us. They allow us to develop and practice mental health concepts like being present and letting go of outcomes and reducing our stress. As the oldest daughter, I have often in my past, been really focused on maybe perfectionism or productivity or controlling all of the details of my life. And what I have come to realize, I think there's a Buddhist concept around attachment creating pain. And I definitely have experienced the pain of being too attached to outcomes or ideas or my way of doing things. And so learning to let go and let life unfurl in its beauty of unexpectedness has become really something that I am practicing. And I don't know that I could have done that in my previous life, in the sense that everything was really tied together and my management or control of details was critical to being able to maintain that American dream. So today we're gonna explore how shedding the weight of a high housing cost can transform our relationship with our home, with our time, and with our mental health. We all know the reality. I probably don't need to rehash it again, but just in case this is a new concept, we certainly know that there are exceptions to this, but right now the median home price in the United States is around $430,000. So when someone goes out to purchase a home, they're going to be spending the median price is $430,000. There are obviously lower cost and higher cost houses available. And certainly if we have home equity in one and we're moving to another, that changes the calculus. But generally speaking, just as a concept, we know they are high. And when we compound that at 6% interest in a 30-year mortgage, we spend double that amount. So a $430,000 purchase price on a home when mortgaged at 6% interest for 30 years. Principal and interest, that would be only the mortgage mechanism of paying for the house itself. That does not include taxes. It doesn't include utilities. It doesn't include maintenance or repairs. It is just the principal and interest on that loan. leads to a total of $928,000 over 30 years. So double the amount of what was originally spent to purchase the home. Likewise, if you're in a metro or other popular area where the home prices are a lot higher, say DC or California or, around some of the major metros, a $900,000 mortgage, compounded at 6% interest for 30 years, leads to a total price of what is paid, again, just principal and interest, not taxes, not insurance, not utilities, not maintenance, is $1.9 million for a house. To put this in perspective, we think about the total household income that one would achieve over that 30 years. So right now, folks have to have a six-figure household income in order to make that $430,000 median home purchase. If we have that six-figure income coming into our household, and that income increases by 2% per year for 30 years. So a very steady and uninterrupted 30-year career with a six-figure consistent income increasing a little bit every year. The total income that comes into that household over those 30 years is about $4.1 million gross before taxes and before all the other expenses. And so when we look at the total amount spent on home as a percentage of total amount of gross income, that gets to be a pretty high percentage of all of the work and effort that we have put into to bring home and income going just to the roof over our heads. And then when we think about that impact on life choices, when we are spending such a large amount of our total income on our home, and we have an obligation every month to, before taxes, before insurance, before utilities, pay $25.78 a month on our housing. This is the example of the $430,000 home, $25.78 a month. So when we think about the impact on our life choices of these high costs of housing that eat up so much of the income that comes into a household, we think about all the ways that this burden, that this obligation dictates things like our lifestyle and our career choices and our consumption habits. When we're maintaining this large obligation, we make different career choices. We maybe don't spend as much time with family or experiences or hobbies or charity or whatever it is, because we feel very committed to that major obligation that we make for 30 years. So those are our behavior choices. And then we think about the psychological impact. So we all know about the realities of chronic stress and how that affects our health. And we all know about the increased mental health challenges that society and we face, and feelings like anxiety and overwhelm and feeling trapped can all be possibly tied back to that significant cost and weight of our housing. I have myself experienced a lot of anxiety and feeling trapped and overwhelmed in the past. And I can definitely suggest that housing costs were a big part of that, because I felt really stuck in a hamster wheel of my career and unable to make choices there or take risks there, because I had to make sure that I showed up for my family and kept that that mortgage payment going and all of the other costs of our high cost of living. So there are so many implications to signing on the dotted line on that 30-year mortgage that we don't necessarily think about. It gets very exciting to buy a home and to, find the perfect house, but there's just a lot that ripples out for a long time that we don't necessarily realize as we are in that excitement of the shopping and the finding and the purchasing. So, as we think about how we reclaim our present moment and we learn to live in a life of letting go and feeling more sense of presence and calm and gentleness on ourselves, one of the things that crops up that I have learned a good bit about is that future focused trap and the way that we kind of live in this space of always working on the future and worrying about the future and feeling the ever moving horizon of what we're trying to achieve. And so, always focusing on the moving horizon or the goals that keep evolving or the ways that we never kind of reach or succeed at anything because we just set the horizon a little further down the line really creates this trap of complete dissatisfaction, always disappointment, never feeling content or satisfied. And this has been definitely something that I have lived in for long periods of time. I read the book The Gap and the Gain and came to realize that I was always focused on the gap, always focused on what hasn't yet been achieved or what has to be done in order to get to the ever moving horizon instead of ever looking back and celebrating and recognizing and just stopping and relishing in all of the progress that had been made so far. When we think about those calculations on payment requirements for 30-year mortgages and how we have to constantly be showing up for that payment every month. And of course, that payment includes all kinds of other costs and expenses of perhaps remodels or improvements, and certainly increasing utility costs and insurance pressures of, oh, my housing insurance is dropping me and now I have to go find a new home insurance and they want me to put on a new roof. Gosh, like there is a lot of pressure that comes along with buying a home. And so it is a stark contrast to the world of in which you choose something different, something less demanding, something a little bit simpler, maybe something smaller, and you can spend more time just enjoying your home and rather than seeing it as a project or a burden or an expense or another heavy need member of your family that needs constant attention. When we choose something a little bit different, we really have more time and space to focus on other things that are more important to us: hobbies, relationships, taking care of ourselves, self development, reflection, all these things that I've been talking about. And when we do have these moments of being present and mindful and relishing our life, we don't have that nagging voice in the back of our head that's always chattering about financial anxiety. I just can't even express how valuable this state of mind can be in terms of just being calm and gentle in your life and how valuable that has proven to be for me. As I mentioned before, I definitely have experienced some pain of kind of keeping tight control on things in my life, details in my life, goals or things that I was working on, certainly finances. And, that rigid need for certainty really comes out of a place of of uncertainty or a place of insecurity. We all need more certainty when we don't feel like we're quite on steady ground. And so when we have these high financial obligations, it creates this intense need for predictable outcomes. Things like making sure that our job is stable. And so if we feel like our job is not stable, or there's some question about whether that job is going to change or go away, we will, take action and feel a lot of need to control that outcome, maybe by finding a better job or politicking or whatever it is. Like, that stable job certainty is really important when we feel uncertain, because every month we have to continue to show up with for however many thousands of dollars it is for us that we need in order just to pay our basic expenses. And we also need to constantly be worried about our income going up when our housing costs and other costs of living are going up. We can't just, settle into perhaps a job that really resonates with us and work that we love, but doesn't pay as well, because we have to constantly be keeping up with those rising costs. Uh, Also, when we have less financial pressure, we have the ability to make career changes or pursue new ideas or even take a temporary break from work that we wouldn't otherwise have. When we don't have that monthly high obligation, we just have more choice. Lower housing costs can also buy us the freedom to pivot. When we don't have as much financial pressure, we have more space in our life to consider career changes or following an idea or launching something new or working in a way that maybe doesn't pay quite as well. We can do things with our work life that isn't possible when we're really focused on making sure that we can pay our high cost of living, including housing costs. We have a reduced fear of failure. We can take more risk when we have a lower housing costs. We can explore new paths. We can take some time off. We can not worry so much about whether our job is 100% secure when we embrace a more modest spending path that we have in front of us based on our cost of housing. I have just read a beautiful book about the two female botanists who came down the Colorado River in the 1830s. It was a beautiful story about them navigating really turbulent and extremely dangerous conditions in a river. It talked a lot about the construction of their boat at the beginning, and it makes me think about how our life is a really turbulent river these days. Jobs are not necessarily so certain as they once were. Costs are not so certain as they once were. We're in a time of unprecedented change and in every aspect. And so, whenever you're in a turbulent river, you really want a light and agile boat that can be able to move and pivot and navigate turbulence instead of a heavy, rigid boat that's hard to move. And this is true of our homes. When we have this heavy, rigid home with its major mortgage payment, we are not able to be as agile and adapt and adjust to what's in front of us. So that was such a great time to think about this analogy, and the way that the home we choose really has a lot to do with our flexibility and our agility in this moment. We've talked on many podcasts before about simplifying our life and how the more we have, the more we need, and the bigger home we have, the more we spend, the more commitments, the more possessions. And so this is a great time to remember that this letting go also encompasses having less stuff, and how less stuff allows us to let go of more aspects of life. We can also be more intentional about living and taking care of the earth. And so, this is another major benefit of choosing something different from a housing perspective. Time affluence, time choice, time autonomy. I mean, my goodness, this is the exact thing that people want to retire to. When people say retire, what they mean is time choice, time autonomy, time affluence. I want my life back so that I can choose what I do with it. And so this is just the greatest benefit of not having a major mortgage is that you get to make more choices on how you spend your time. We only have so many things that we can process mentally at any one given time. And we all who are high achievers or productivity focused people can be great multitaskers if there are great multitaskers. But still, we have a finite capacity for processing. And when we are constantly chasing financial obligations, mortgage payments, what's going on with our homeowner's insurance, why is our electric bill so high, when is that guy coming to fix the upstairs bathroom plumbing, we are missing out on space and our mind to focus on how do I heal from my childhood wounds? And what was my role in my family? And how do I work on this relationship that I have been so controlling in the past? And how do I learn to let go of my expectations there? These are all examples of things that I have been thinking about. And I feel like there's time and space for me to think about them because I'm not so worried about what's going on with my house at the moment. We all know about the physiological tie with stress and how chronic stress impacts our body, our health, our mind. We can all be challenged to find ways to reduce stress in our life. When we reduce our housing stress, we can positively impact our relationships, our sleep, our physical health, our overall mood. We can work on these other aspects of our life because we have less to worry about in the housing and income expenses world. We can perhaps build some financial resilience, building up some cushion so that we are agile like that boat and ready to navigate the turbulent waters that we're in and are ahead of us. And so our home can really become a safe place. It can become a gentle place. It can become a sanctuary for us to rest and rejuvenate and work on all of the other aspects of our life that need some attention. On this podcast, we talk about a lot of different avenues for lower cost housing, obviously tiny homes. There's geographical moves that people are able to make to lower cost housing areas, finding another small town or large town where it's a little bit cheaper to live, perhaps. Co-housing is one that I've talked about on this podcast that allows some great resource sharing, some cost sharing, some risk sharing, reducing perhaps the overall building of housing, minimalism, alternative home types. There's just a lot of ways to explore your options if you feel like you are trapped in a home that isn't serving you. And of course, we talk a lot about mindset on this podcast and how it's not about deprivation or not having the luxury that we deserve, but it's really about intentional choices. We simply cannot have it all. We can't have it all. So we have to make intentional choices about prioritizing what is actually most important to us. And if having a big roof is not as important to you as other things, there are ways to shift gears and refocus and use your house as a tool for that. Of course, we have to always remember that even if we do choose a smaller home or a less financially demanding home, we still have to practice good financial habits in order to create that peace of mind that we want. Lower cost is great as long as that allows some savings and some cushion in other places. So making sure that we are taking charge of that area of our life in this process is really important. So we've really talked about how lower housing costs enable us to be present, perhaps let go, reduce our attachments to outcomes and control, and just be present in our own lives and allow things and people to be who they are. It reduces our obligations, our responsibilities, and can thereby help reduce our stress, which will, as we know, improve our health and our experience. This is your moment to consider how your housing situation is affecting your mental well-being and whether it is serving you and allowing you to be intentional about the life that you want to be living. And so, of course, there are steps that you can take towards greater time autonomy, towards greater presence, towards greater healing. If I can help you in that road, you can certainly get in touch. And so I would love it if more and more folks would move towards their home supporting their life rather than being such a significant drain and obligation and responsibility. Our home is one of our most basic needs and can really serve an important role. But when it becomes something that is such a hefty obligation and so stressful, this is a time to rethink and reconsider. Thanks for joining me on Less House, More Moola podcast this week. And I will be back next week. Some great interviews coming up. So looking forward to seeing you there. Less House, More Moola podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Laura Lynch, here in my tiny house. I'm so grateful to you for being along on this journey with me. We are not alone in wanting to live a life that is more gentle on our earth and provides us with financial freedom. So when you have a conversation with someone else considering what alternatives are out there, make sure you share this podcast with them. Let's bring them along with us. Please see the show notes for an important disclosure regarding the Tiny House Advisor LLC in this episode.